Hey there again. I realize it's been quite a long time since I've put up a video, and that's because my life has been just insanely busy for the last month and a half. As you can see, I moved. I moved into a new place, and I've had to pack up all my stuff, and then I was gone for 2 weeks, but I'm back now, at least for a little while, before I have to travel again for work. And I wanted to make this video real quick because I just got back from ConSimWorld Expo in Tempe, Arizona. And I just want to give you some thoughts about what it was like. It was my first year ever going, and I got a lot of gaming done and a couple of pickups that I wanted to show you. So ConSimWorld, if you don't know, it's a wargaming expo, primarily wargaming expo, and primarily an expo for monster games. Big stuff. There was just a ton of huge multi-table map games going on all week. It's a week long, usually at the end of June in Tempe, Arizona. My mom actually lives in the Phoenix area, so I stayed with her for a week, and it was good to see the family and go to the expo in the evenings. I had a friend come out, and we went and we did a lot of gaming. We played some stuff we haven't played in a long time. I hadn't seen him in a while. And overall, I would say it was a pretty fun show. I know that they had a lot of newcomers there, more so than they have ever had. I think they said 50 to 60 new people attending ConSimWorld. I, obviously, being one of those, and you know, I love war games, so I had to go check it out while I had the chance. You know, obviously, I was probably one of the younger people there. There are a lot of folks who've probably been going all 15 years that the con's been going on, but I got a chance to meet a lot of people that I know either from the comments on this channel, John Sai, there's your shout out that you requested of me, or meet other YouTubers. I got a chance to play Empires in the Middle Ages with Callendale. If you haven't been to his channel, he covers like every war game ever. Does playthroughs and reviews and stuff like that. I got a chance to meet him and talk with him a little bit, so that was great, and play his favorite game for him at least one night. I really regret that I didn't get a chance to play more with him. It's an interesting game. I met Jason Young, who also does a lot of gameplay videos on his channel, just associated war games. I think between the two of them, they've probably cost me a lot of money in terms of stuff that they would play that I bought. I know Jason, for example, watching his playthroughs of Cells, Battle of the Bulge, and To the Last Man caused me to buy both of those games. So it was cool to meet them in person, and it was cool to play some games with them. I played Sekigahara with Jason one night, and he stomped all over me, so I had a really poor showing, but it was a fun game. I love that game, and we knocked it out in like an hour and a half. It was pretty quick. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. I got the chance to see a lot of games that I was curious about, but had never seen in person or played, and they had a nice flea market set up too, and I picked up a couple things off the flea market. What did I play while I was there? Well, I played Sekigahara a couple times, as I mentioned. I lost both games. I played Washington's War. I've owned that game for quite a while, since October, I believe, but I never had a chance to play it, and I finally got it to the table 3 times, actually, against 3 different opponents, and I have to say, not really a fan. I understand that it's like the first CDG, and I really like the American Revolution as a time period, but you know, all of the criticisms that people have against it, mainly that it just feels like you're playing Go with an American Revolution theme pasted on, was very apparent to me. And I decided that I'm probably going to get rid of that game because there are so many CDGs, and CDGs is like my favorite war game genre or type of game. There are so many CDGs that have come out since then that are so much better and have taken the design to the next level. And while I can respect where Washington's War is coming from, originally, as obviously it was We the People, but I can respect where it's coming from, and I respect like everything it did, you know, to open up a whole new genre of game. But yeah, I'm probably going to get rid of that one. Not really a fan of how it plays. What else did I play? I finally got a chance to play a full game of No Retreat, the North African Front, the Invasion of Crete. Still haven't played the full campaign game of North African Front, or No Retreat, North Africa. But I did get a full game of the Invasion of Crete in, and I came away with kind of 2 thoughts about it. A, I really like some of the chrome in that game. I like how the Germans have to airdrop their units in, and I like the way the map is split up into the different sectors of the north shore of the island, and how the Germans have to move in and capture the airfields and capture the ports, and the fact that the British are outgunned. And I like all the chrome associated. I think it's really cool. But ultimately, I also think I'm going to get rid of that game. As much as I love the art on the map and the big counters and sort of what it's trying to do to make a low counter density hex and counter game about different parts of World War II, I just feel like the system is really fiddly, like super fiddly. Probably one of the most fiddly wargaming systems I think I've ever played, in terms of like putting your attack markers down and the rules for counterblow and counterblow movement, and just all sorts of stuff about the system is super fiddly. And secondly, the rule book is just an absolute mess. Probably the worst rule book I've ever tried to get my head around, ever, maybe. And I'm not like, I'm pretty good with rules. I can get rules down. I read rule books often, and I feel like I have a good grasp. Even abstracted stuff that's abstracted in rule books, I feel like I can mentally get my head around. But for whatever reason, the rule book for No Retreat North Africa is just an absolute like horror, abomination. It needed like several more passes in development, and I know that the designer is not a native English speaker, but he really needed to get someone who did speak English natively to go through those rules and really streamline them, because there's just so many sections that contradict themselves, and the rules for the Invasion of Crete game like take parts of the main game but then either leave out or add new parts, so you're constantly referencing the main game and then trying to see how the Invasion of Crete is different. And so I did enjoy what I played. I don't think that system is for me, which is a shame, because No Retreat, the East Front one, looks really cool, and the Italy one just came out, and they're actually playing it at the ConSimWorld Expo, and it looked really cool, but probably not for me. There are other games that do what it's doing better and less frustratingly, so I think I'm going to give up on that one as well. What else did I play? I played Horus Heresy again for the second time. It was really close, really tense game. The more I play that game, the more I really respect the design. Played it with a friend who owns it, and if you haven't played Horus Heresy, it's an old Fantasy Flight game. Fantasy Flight Games war game set in the Warhammer 40k universe about Horus's invasion of basically the Emperor's palace. And it's just phenomenally done. It's got a card-driven battle system, and this cool card-driven order system where you've got like a strategic map and then you've got a tactical map, and it's just got a really awesome like flow and pace to it. So played some of that. I lost, but it was very close and very epic. There were some amazing battles right at the end. I was basically knocking on the door of Horus's like command ship, like where his command center was, while his troops were capturing the spaceports on the map, and ultimately I lost. Just very closely. I played a game of Labyrinth, and it was actually the longest game of Labyrinth I've ever played. I own Labyrinth, obviously. I really enjoy that game. I played a 2-deck game against the same opponent I played Horus Heresy against. He was the jihadist, I was the US, and again, it was very close. The dice didn't go my way in that one, so that was unfortunate. What else did I play while I was there? I got a chance to play Unconditional Surrender, which is a game I also own but hadn't played. And it was actually the very first night, and I walked into the convention. I didn't know anyone there. I was walking around, and there was a table with Unconditional Surrender set up, and no one was playing it. And so I sat down and I was looking at it, and the guy at the table introduced himself, and we started talking about the game, and it turns out that he was the designer, and that would be Sal Vasta, and he was there with his son, and they were on a trip looking at potential universities for his son who wants to go into game design. So I went out to lunch with them that night and that dinner that night and talked to them about that. But he taught me how to play. They both taught me how to play Unconditional Surrender, and it made me super excited to get back home and set it up and go through a scenario of that game. I'm really compelled by sort of like the global strategic scale games, and this one has obviously gotten a lot of acclaim and a lot of praise. And I heard so much about it, and so finally getting a chance to play it was really awesome. I made some pretty bad strategic and tactical errors, but once you kind of get the system down, you can see kind of, it's a very interesting, simple system for like all of the things it's modeling. And obviously, I played a scenario that didn't have the diplomacy aspect to it, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I want to thank Sal for teaching me the game. And yeah, I'll definitely be setting that up and playing it, and I might even give my thoughts here on the channel. What else did I play? I I tried to get a game of FIFA in, couldn't find any players, and I finally played a game of Virgin Queen, which is a game that I've been wanting to play for a long, long time. We got a full game of 6. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to the end because a couple people bailed after the 3rd turn for a variety of reasons, which was unfortunate, but I got enough of the game in. I was playing the Ottomans to get a real sense of it, and that game is amazing. It is an amazing piece of design. It's an amazing sort of like melange of moving parts and different things you can do. I mean, just the amount of options any given player in that game has to try and further their victory, and the different mechanics that each player has in order to achieve those things are really interesting. The Protestants don't have any pieces on the board, and yet they can convert spaces to their religion with dice rolling, and the Ottomans are really militaristic, and so it's more of a war game, and you know, the Spanish are really just this big overseas empire trying to protect their stuff, and obviously the Holy Roman Empire is playing, you know, both sides against each other, and you're not certain what their motives are because their victory condition is secret that they choose at the beginning of the game. So, but yeah, I can't wait to get another play of Virgin Queen, and I had such a blast. And you know, I didn't even see all the cards in the deck, but you know, it was a ton of fun, and it was a good group that we played with. And so obviously, thank you, Patrick, for teaching me the game and setting that up, and it was really nice to meet you as well. Yeah, just some awesome stuff that I'd always wanted to play at the con. I think overall, my thoughts, would I go back next year? I probably would if it would work out travel-wise. I'm probably not going to bend over backwards to go again if it came down to it. I think part of the reason for that is because the convention feels very locked in, very cliquish, I guess you could say, or maybe not cliquish, but insular. And as someone new walking in, it was very hard sometimes to find people to play things with, people who weren't committed to a week-long Monster game that they had signed up for when they registered, and that was what they went there to do. I feel like probably 90% of the people who went to go to ConSimWorld Expo go so they can spend a week playing these massive sprawling games, and that's the only game they play. So there's a lot less pickup groups going on there, although there were a couple. And I hope that if you get a chance to go, you do go, because I think some new blood into the mix would really help that. There's people there that have been playing, specific systems or specific games their whole lives, and that's really all they play. And so it's interesting to see all that stuff, and it's interesting to talk to those people. But yeah, could use some churn maybe with some shorter stuff or some pickup groups and stuff like that. People seem really reluctant to jump into pickup games, which is unfortunate. And the one thing I did want to mention, I actually I met Brian Train, who's the co-designer on one of my favorite games, which is A Distant Plane. It's actually the game that got me into wargaming, so meeting him was awesome. Got a chance to talk about what he's working on. He's actually working on a couple of different coin designs right now, which is awesome. More coin is never a bad thing. He's working on one about the Japanese invasion of China in the 30s. Which is a 4-player game, which looks pretty interesting. He's just started work on that, so it's still very early. But he's also working on a coin game about the French-Algerian War in the 50s and 60s, and that one is a 2-player only coin game. And so he gave me a walkthrough, sort of how that is going to be different. And it sounds really interesting. The sort of action matrix where you sort of decide what you want to do on your turn is way different. It's kind of like a box with different segments, and so you pick one, and then your opponent picks any box that's adjacent to it. So it still has the same flow as a coin game, but it kind of looks a little different. Obviously, being 2-player, there's no need to specify turn order on the cards, as one player will always have initiative and the other player will not, based on what action you choose. So the cards are just events now, which is really interesting. So you can either take the event or do op special activity. And it seems really interesting. The French have sort of a bunch of different units that they can command. So there's French soldiers, French police. There's also Algerian police and Algerian military. And then obviously you've got the sort of counterinsurgent Algerian faction, which is their own thing. So it seems really, really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to that. It was really fun to talk to him about sort of why he designed that and what were his reasons for picking that conflict and stuff like that. I wish I had interviewed him formally. I didn't get a chance to, but it was really cool, so it was really nice to meet Brian. And yeah, so let's talk about what I picked up while I was there. Obviously, you can't go to a convention without picking something up. At the convention, I only picked up 2 things. But right before, I actually ordered a couple of things. The first of which was Caesar Conquest of Gaul from GMT. I had a friend in town a couple weeks ago, and we played the new release, or the new re-release, I should say, of Great Battles of Alexander Deluxe, and it was my first foray into the Great Battles of History series. And I'm not a big tactical guy, but I was super impressed and had a ton of fun playing Alexander Deluxe, and because of the system. The system is so genius and so... it feels like a simulation that's happening slightly out of your control when you play the game, and so it's really interesting. It provides interesting narratives, and you can have two units basically that are the exact same going against two units that are the exact same, and they could fight each other, and those outcomes between each combat could be wildly different. Depending on what happens with the die rolls and all that stuff. So I was really impressed with the Great Battles of History, so I wanted to pick up a game in the series that was A, readily available, and B, had a topic I liked. And I think from a game design perspective, I really like the idea of barbarians versus sort of disparate barbarian tribes versus organized Roman legions. So I went with Caesar Conquest of Gaul for that reason. I haven't played it yet. I'm reading the rules right now, but I'm really excited to get to the table with some friends up here. And one of the things I picked up at actually ConSimWorld Expo was a module for that was from like C3I number 11 or something, like way back in the day, Caractacus. I think it's the Caractacus module. And I got that for like $10 from a guy who was selling it on the flea market, so I added that to the box, which was really nice. So I've got a ton of scenarios in there now. The other game I picked up right before the con was a game that I was super excited about because A, I really like the war that it's portraying, and B, it seemed just like something right up my alley as someone who likes big global scale strategic sort of treatments of conflicts, and that was Balance of Powers from Compass Games. This arrived literally the day the expo started, and I checked it out, I opened the box, I punched it, all that stuff, and I walked into the convention, and in one of the breakout rooms there were two guys who were playing the campaign version of this game, basically the entirety of World War I from beginning to end. And what I think is so cool about this game is that it comes with 3 maps, or 4 if you count the Africa sheet, but it's basically all of Europe and the near Middle East and Africa and all of the naval sort of conflict around those places of World War I for 2 to 7 players. So each player can control a major power in World War I, which is just like awesome. I hope one day I can get a campaign game with 7 people that we take from beginning to end with this game, which would be just amazing. But even just as a 2-player game, I really love World War I as a conflict. I think it's a really interesting period of history. I think the conflict itself was very defining for the 20th century, and a game that kind of models not only the military aspect of it, but the political aspect of it and the economic aspect of it, like this game kind of sets out to do in the context of the war, is super interesting to me. So I saw it being played. It looks amazing. I love the counters. First of all, I love Mark Mahaffey's art in any game. He did the map to Red Winter. He did the map to Warriors of God. He did the map to Cell Battle of the Bulge. I feel like every other war game that comes out, Kingdom of Heaven he did the map for. I feel like every other war game that comes out, Mark Mahaffey does the maps, but he did the maps for this game, and they're just gorgeous. Just really gorgeous. They're really evocative of sort of the 19 teens, and I really can't wait to get to the table. That's Balance of Powers. And then finally, from the flea market, another pickup I picked up, and this one, obviously, you're going to think I'm probably pretty insane, or I don't know what I'm getting into, or whatever, but I got this for a good price, and I was really curious about it for a long time, and that is Baltic Gap, which is an Operational Combat Series game from MMP. Obviously, Operational Combat Series is not the easiest system to learn. This will primarily be a solo project for me. I actually own Reluctant Enemies as well, which is sort of the intro OCS game. I haven't punched it even yet, and I haven't read the rules yet, but that's the one I'm probably going to start with. But I wanted an OCS game that once I do get the system under my belt, that was sort of bigger, and not too big, obviously, but bigger, and I thought this was what I was looking at for a while. It's about the Soviet attack through towards Berlin through the Baltic nations, so Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. It sort of models that conflict. So I got it for a really good price. That's the other reason I pulled the trigger. But I'm really excited to learn OCS. Everything I've seen about OCS, I'm kind of intimidated, but everything I've seen about OCS just seems like super interesting to me. Modeling the logistics of supply very heavily and things like that. So There's actually a guy on the flea market who had, and you'll see pictures of this online if you go to Board Game Geek in one of the ConSimWorld Expo threads, but there was a guy who was selling Case Blue and Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 for $600 for the both of them. And they were sitting there all week, and I'm super shocked that they didn't get swiped at some point during the con. But it was pretty awesome to see those games there. When you talk about, those are basically the gold standard for massive, monster, ridiculous, like, you know, living room spanning game. If you ever want to blow someone's mind about how crazy wargaming can get, you show them pictures of Case Blue and GB2 kind of set up together. So I don't know if they got sold, but it was really cool to see those in person. There's a lot of OCS happening at the con, actually, and you know, just every time I see one of those maps and the counter stacks and all that stuff, like my nerd sense starts tingling. So I'm excited to get into OCS one of these days, as soon as I get unpacked from my move and get some table space open. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this game that I played with a friend, not at the con. I actually played it the night the con was over, and we came home and I just set it up and gave it a try. But I was really surprised by it, and that is a game called Soulfall, which is from Smallbox Games and John Cloudis, who did, obviously, he did Omen: A Reign of War, which is a game you know I love a lot from this channel. And it's really amazing, a really amazing piece of design. You know, the Nile Ran Red, I kickstarted that, and I was really unimpressed with the games that were in there. And I kickstarted this primarily because the art is incredible. The art in this kind of reminds me of something like The Ancient World from Red Raven Games, or Shadow of the Colossus. It's got kind of like this Titanic, ethereal, kind of foggy, misty vibe to it. And so I primarily backed it for the art. I was expecting to get another dud, but I pulled it out of the box. I played 2 games in a row with my friend, and it is so interesting. It's such an interesting game. It's a hand management game. It's an area control game, kind of together. And it's got some elements of Omen kind of thrown in a little bit, sprinkled in. So yeah, really impressed with Soulfall. You know, it came in the mail a couple months ago maybe, but yeah, really interesting game. If you get a chance to play Soulfall, or even just, you know, pick it up, because I'm sure it's cheap, you should definitely do it. Really interesting card game. So yeah, so that's probably my biggest surprise, was a Kickstarter game that I hadn't played in 2 months that I decided to pop open after the commission was over. That was the biggest surprise, I think. But yeah, it was an overall good experience. And I enjoyed going, and I'm going to try and go again next year too. So hopefully, for those of you I met there, I will see you there or at another con coming up. I'll definitely be going to Game On Con here in Seattle, whenever that's going to be, February, March, I think. They're almost sold out already, from what I understand, so that should be a lot of fun. And if not, well, I'm hoping to put up the stuff on the video, on the channel, get back into the grind, get the channel moving again now that I'm sort of moved in permanently for a long time. And yeah, put up some stuff. I got a lot of games I want to cover, and hopefully I'll get the time to do that. But thanks for sticking with me this long if you've been watching, and I will see you on the flip side.